quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Well, Mr. President, let me start off with some great news. When we vote later today, all of us will be able to say these 4 wonderful words. Senator Lujan, welcome back. He's not on the floor right now, but Ben Ray, it was great to see you back here in the Capitol last week. It's great to see you today. We've missed you. We're thrilled to have you back on the job. We admire your strength and your courage and your fortitude, your quiet strength. Now, over the weekend, members from both House and Senate met virtually with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and we re-emphasized Congress's strong and unwavering commitment to providing robust and ample assistance to his country in this time of war. I told the Ukrainian president he was an inspiration to Americans, and I assured him that his pleas for help will not go unanswered. In particular, President Zelensky made a desperate plea for getting Eastern European countries to provide Russian-made planes to Ukraine. I strongly support the president's request, and yesterday I called on the administration to explore all feasible options to getting these fighter aircraft to Ukraine. These planes are very much needed. Ukrainian forces are familiar with them, and they will very much help in countering the Russians, especially as Putin massacres civilians in Ukraine. Democrats and Republicans broadly agree that this is a necessary step against Russia's illegal invasion. And today I reiterate my call for the administration to explore how to ensure the Ukrainians have the capabilities they need. I also spoke with the administration yesterday and was told they are looking closely at imposing a ban on oil. Meanwhile, there are other steps on Russian oil coming here. Meanwhile, there are other steps Congress can take in the coming days to support the Ukrainian people. Above all, we must finalize a more than $12 billion emergency aid package to be included in the upcoming omnibus spending bill. This emergency aid will provide both humanitarian and military assistance for Ukraine, funding for refugees, medical supplies, emergency food supplies, as well as funding to support weapon transfers into Ukraine and help our eastern flank NATO allies. The clearest signal Congress can send to Vladimir Putin this week is passing a bipartisan aid package, leaving no doubt that the democratic nations of the world stand with Ukraine and against Putin's deeply immoral and bloody war. And again, let me say it again, the quickest way to secure an emergency aid package for Ukraine is through the omnibus. And I believe both sides are close, very close, to arriving at an agreement. Now, on COVID aid. At the same time, there's another important matter that Congress must address in the spending bill, additional COVID relief aid, which the administration has wisely urged Congress to approve. The federal government has completely exhausted all the public health funding approved last year as part of the American Rescue Plan. That means that to prepare for future variants, more federal funding is needed now. Across the country, thank God we've seen signs that the U.S. is turning the corner on COVID. Schools are open, mask guidelines are being reversed, vaccinations have surpassed 216 million Americans. And last Friday, we learned more than 7 million jobs have now been created since President Biden took office. This is all great news. Cases are falling, unemployment is falling, and the country is on the right track. But experience has taught us that new variants can come back with a vengeance if we aren't ready. The administration has been clear. If we want schools to stay open, if we want to preserve as much of normal life as possible, when another variant arises, and the odds are quite high that one will, Congress must pass additional COVID funding now, a lot later. We have to have it ready. We have to have the therapeutics ready. We have to have the testing ready. We have to have the vaccines ready. We can't wait 2-3 months when after the variant hits, we debate this issue and then allocate the money and then production starts. That would be terrible for the country. It'll be too little, too late. Far better to prepare now than play catch-up later. We should have learned our lesson a long time ago, but now we are, hopefully. I've been strongly urging my colleagues to get a deal done on COVID. Failure to act is not an acceptable outcome. Another issue this week, postal reform. This week, the Senate is going to put the finishing touches on a bipartisan accomplishment weeks, months, and in fact years in the making: comprehensive postal reform legislation. 6 days a week, the U.S. Postal Service processes an average of 167 million pieces of first-class mail. It employs nearly 500,000 people. It's been a fixture of our country since the very beginning, since Benjamin Franklin. But over the last decade, the Post Office has been in serious need of reform. Everyone knows the frustration of waiting weeks for a package to come in the mail. So this week, the Senate is finally passing legislation that will deliver for the Post Office the long overdue reforms it has been waiting for. The fact that this bill has extraordinary bipartisan support is indicative of its importance. And I'm glad that both sides have negotiated in good faith thus far. I want to particularly thank Chairman Peters and Ranking Member Portman for making sure this legislation has kept moving over the past few weeks. For generations, the Post Office has delivered for America, and now Congress is delivering for the Post Office. By passing postal reform legislation, we can ensure that Americans will continue to benefit from a speedy, dependable, and well-run post office, just as we have for our entire history. And now on costs. A few weeks ago, a member of the Republican leadership released a platform that proposed raising taxes on tens of millions of Americans, focused on fanning the flames of division, and zeroed in on proposals that failed to address the biggest problems of our time. Today, a new analysis found a plan like that from the junior senator of Florida could raise taxes on many American families by more than $1,000 in 2022 alone. Democrats don't think that we should be raising taxes on working Americans as we recover from COVID. In fact, we're working to make sure Americans have more money, not less, in their pockets. So today, I sent my colleagues a letter outlining how Democrats will keep a laser focus over the next few months on cutting costs, building upon historic job growth, and finding bipartisan ways to help everyday Americans make ends meet. Democrats are the party offering ideas for how to combat inflation that's being felt around the world because of COVID. Democrats are taking aim at capping insulin prices to $35 a month while making prescription drugs much, much cheaper. Democrats are working to repair supply chain bottlenecks that are hurting businesses, including in our seaports. And Democrats are zeroing in on policies to combat price hikes at the grocery store, including meat prices, which the President noted last week. This week, our caucus will hold our annual DPCC retreat, where we will go over our proposals in greater detail. I want to compliment Senator Stabenow for putting this retreat together, and I encourage all of my colleagues to review my letter so we can all continue our work of lowering costs for the American people. I yield the floor.